Hello, my friends. It's good to be with you today, albeit virtually. I hope you're doing well, and I hope you're enjoying being with your Westside community this Sunday morning. As I think about what I'm going to talk about at Westside, I try to come up with subjects I believe Westsiders might be interested in hearing. Very often, the things I believe you all might be interested in are the things that interest me too. I'm mostly interested in the human condition, the things that affect us, both positively and negatively, simply by being here, by being born, by being alive. Part of the human condition is our beliefs about religion, how it might help us, how it might get in our way, how it might play a major or minor role in our lives. And that, I think, is what brings us together on Sundays at Westside. We're not necessarily present on Sundays to pray to gods or worship deities. I think we come together to try to figure life out, to whatever extent we can, in a community that appreciates who we are, no matter who we are. It can be a powerful combination if you allow it to be. And some things just seem to make life better. These things are often clumped together in something called the arts. And without them, this world we inhabit becomes much less interesting. Now, I understand the need to focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic, but there is also no doubt in my mind that we need, not just desire, but need musicians, authors, painters, and other kinds of artists. And we need poets too. And just like the other arts, our ancestors also needed these things for living a better life. I've recently read that our first known existence of poetry is prehistoric, with hunting poems discovered in Africa. The earliest written poem we have is probably the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was written in the Sumerian language, which is one of the earliest known languages of human being, dating back to almost 3,000 years before Jesus walked the earth. In the Epic of Gilgamesh is a story written hundreds of years before the Bible about a worldwide flood and a man and his family who built a large boat because their God had told them he was going to eliminate humanity, for they had become too obnoxious. After sending out birds to see if there was dry land available, the floodwaters receded, and there they slaughtered a lamb to offer up a sacrifice to that God. Does that sound familiar to anybody else? But poetry was likely very important as religions developed. Poetry can be memorized, and epic stories can be told and retold in this way. Biblical stories were often told out loud from memory. And even today, there are some Muslims who have memorized the entire Quran. They are given the title of Hafiz, and they are offered great respect and believe they will receive many blessings because of their ability to memorize their holy book. Poetry, by all accounts, is important. But I'll be honest here. I've not always been that appreciative of poetry. Okay, I'll rephrase that and say I've never really appreciated poetry until somewhat recently. Poets, it seems to me, have the ability to see beyond words. Their use of words are often very precise and specific, but they also play metaphorically and allegorically. Then the use of techniques such as rhyme, meter, and phonoaesthetics, which is the study of the sounds of words. None of this really attracted me. I'm more of a person who likes to hear things plainly without need for interpretation so that I can understand more easily. I mean, for much of my life, much of the poetry I enjoyed started out with the line, "There once was a man from Nantucket." And even though I'm speaking at church, I'm going to give you an example of one of these classic poems. So cover your children's ears. There once was a man from Nantucket who kept all his cash in a bucket, but his daughter named Nan ran away with a man, and as for the bucket, Nantucket. You're welcome. But somewhat seriously, the only poetry that I seemed attracted to for most of my life was written in a humorous vein, like this one titled Messy Room by Shel Silverstein. It goes like this. Whosever room this is should be ashamed. His underwear is hanging on the lamp. His raincoat is there in the overstuffed chair, and the chair is becoming quite mucky and damp. His workbook is wedged in the window. His sweater's been thrown on the floor. His scarf and one ski are beneath the TV, and his pants have been carelessly hung on the door. His books are all jammed in the closet. His vest has been left in the hall. A lizard named Ed is asleep in his bed, and his smelly old sock has been stuck to the wall. Whosever room this is should be ashamed. Donald or Robert or Willie or, huh? You say it's mine? Oh dear, I knew it looked familiar. But more than a few years back, I began to notice the poetry of Mary Oliver. It seemed everywhere I turned, her name was popping up. She appears in our gray hymnal 3 times. When you read about death and dying, you will find her work. When you read about the magnificence of nature, you will find her work. And if you read about animals, you will find her work. I found her work a lot. And so naturally, I began to wonder who this person was and why she kept showing up in my life. And I was very surprised at how little is written about the person, Mary Oliver. There is a great deal written about her poetry, but not much is written about who she really was. There is an authorized biography that has been in the works since 2019, the year Mary Oliver died, but it has yet to be published. So in listening to interviews and looking at Wikipedia and reading some articles, here is the little I know about Mary Oliver, the person. She was born in the year 1935 in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. As best I can tell, she was an only child, and she did not have a good home life growing up. As she became a little older, in order to escape the chaos of her home, she would leave and go to the woods which were nearby. She described her surroundings as very pastoral. She would wander for hours, and she became an acute observer of the natural world and all it had to offer. She found it much preferable to being at home, and at this early age she would develop a pattern that she would repeat for the rest of her life. She wrote standing up with pencil and paper as she walked amongst those beloved trees that offered her respite from her parents. On the one hand, it presents a melancholy picture of a young girl who escapes familial difficulties through her absence. But on the other hand, one might see a young girl who is happy to be away from home, while relishing in her curiosity of what she beholds during these times away. And no matter which way Mary Oliver herself made it through her childhood, we are the beneficiary. We are able to read her words. We are able to see differently because of her work. And we are blessed because she was here. She would go on to win numerous prizes and awards for her work. Among them, she received the Pulitzer Prize for Poetry in 1984 for the collection titled American Primitive. Later, in 1992, she won the National Book Award for her book titled New and Selected Poems. She attended both Ohio State University and Vassar College, but did not earn a degree from either. She would be given honorary doctorates by 4 universities, including Tufts, which was founded by our Universalist ancestors. If my counting is correct, she wrote 37 books. 14 of those books were published by Beacon Press. Beacon Press, as I'm sure many of you know, is the nonprofit publishing arm of the Unitarian Universalist Association. She was a very private person and offered few media interviews. In 2006, at the Unitarian Universalist Association's General Assembly in St. Louis, Missouri, Oliver gave the Ware Lecture. The UUA's General Assembly is our annual national congregational meeting, and the Ware Lecture, to me, is the highlight of the conference. The UUA offers the Ware Lecture to a distinguished person annually, going back over 100 years. Past Ware lecturers are Jane Addams, Reinhold Niebuhr, Linus Pauling, Martin Luther King Jr., Saul Alinsky, Marian Wright Edelman, Norman Lear, and Jesse Jackson. From about the year 2000 on, many of the Ware lectures were recorded and are available on the UUA website, but not the Ware lecture given by Mary Oliver. She would not allow herself to be recorded at the meeting. The Reverend Bill Sinkford, the UUA's president at the time, said this as he introduced her. Our worship services draw upon many sources. Congregations use none more effectively or more frequently than the work of Mary Oliver. Her poems reflect a love of the natural world and the struggle to find peace and compassion. She is one of our most important liturgists, Sinkford said, also noting that she probably didn't plan for that to happen. It was in the late 1950s that Mary Oliver met Molly Malone Cook at the home of another poet. Molly was a photographer, and the two of them soon became inseparable. When accepting the National Book Award, Oliver said, "Molly Cook Malone, the best reader anyone could have. She is the light of my life." They would be together until Molly's death in 2005. That entire time, they lived together in Provincetown, Massachusetts, in Cape Cod. If you are unfamiliar, Provincetown is at the very end of the little foot or peninsula that sticks out into the Atlantic Ocean. You'll be pleased to know it is very near Nantucket, and there is a Unitarian Universalist congregation there. When Molly died, Mary moved to Florida. The cold of winter had become too much, and she admitted to her having fallen down on ice more than once, and that bones were broken. But Florida is very different from Massachusetts in many ways other than weather, and she missed her old home dearly. In 2019, she would die in Florida. She had lung cancer in 2012, but it was lymphoma that would take her 7 years later. She has left us a great deal, and many of us are grateful. There are so many wonderful poems written by Mary Oliver, it is difficult to choose one to read. Jana has done a lovely job today offering you some of Oliver's best. The poem Wild Geese, for instance, that was read as a responsive reading, has actually saved people's lives. I hope sometime this week you might take the time to read that poem again, perhaps out loud, and think about the young girl trying to escape her parents. And then think about how Mary Oliver's words would comfort someone who has also experienced such despair. But I will leave you with Ricky Talks About Talking from her collection titled Dog Songs. She loved dogs, and this one features two: Ricky, her dog at the time, and her deceased but beloved dog, Percy. She writes, "Ricky, can you explain how it is that Anne and I can talk with you, as we did with Percy too, and we all understand each other? Is it kind of a miracle?" "It's no miracle," said Ricky. "It's actually simple. When you or Anne talk, I listen. When I talk, you listen, as you did with Percy." "Of course we listen." "No, I mean really listen. Here's a story, and you don't have to visit many houses to find it. One person is talking, the other one is not really listening. Someone can look like they are, but they're actually thinking about something they want to say, or their minds are just wandering, or they're looking at that little box people hold in their hands these days, and people get discouraged, so they quit trying. And the very quiet people, you may have noticed, are often the sad people. Ricky, you have really thought about this. So we can talk together because we really listen, and that's because, yes," said Ricky, "because we care." I hope you are able to care for someone this week. I hope you are able to read some poetry this week. And I hope you will find yourself right back here next week. Oh, and just so you know, the words to our closing hymn were written by the Unitarian minister Ralph Waldo Emerson, who was a major influence on the poetry of Mary Oliver. As we rise in body or spirit and join together in the singing of our closing hymn, number 44, we sing as golden mornings.